I thought I could carry it forever, that weight of being alone in a crowded world. I smiled at strangers, served coffee with a cheerful voice, tucked my daughter into bed with bedtime stories, all while my heart felt like it was locked in a box I'd buried so deep that even I forgot where to find the key. Loneliness wasn't just an emotion for me, it became my shadow, my constant companion, the thing I wore under my clothes like a second skin that nobody could see. Before I continue my story, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel so more real-life stories like mine can reach people who need hope. My name is Emma, and I want to tell you about the years I spent pretending I was okay when I was absolutely falling apart inside. It started 8 years ago when my husband David told me he didn't love me anymore. Just like that. No warning, no slow decline I could point to and say, that's when things started going wrong. We were sitting at our kitchen table in our small apartment in Portland, Oregon, and he looked at me with eyes that had already left even though his body was still there. "I'm not happy, Emma," he said, and those 4 words shattered everything I thought I knew about my life. We'd been married for 6 years. We had a 3-year-old daughter named Sophie who had his eyes and my smile. I worked as a waitress at a diner downtown, and he worked in sales at a car dealership. We weren't rich, but we were getting by. Or at least I thought we were. Apparently, David had been getting by somewhere else, with someone else, for months. He moved out the next week, packed his things while I was at work, left his key on the counter, and just like that, I became a single mother trying to survive in a city that felt too expensive, too cold, too indifferent to my pain. The divorce was quick because he didn't fight for anything. He didn't want custody, didn't want to keep any of our things, didn't even want to talk about what went wrong. He just wanted out, and I was left holding all the pieces of a life I had to somehow continue living. The first year was the hardest. I picked up extra shifts at the diner, working doubles until my feet ached so badly I'd cry in the shower at night. Sophie started asking where Daddy was, and I didn't know how to explain abandonment to a child who still believed the world was good. I told her he had to go away for work, that he still loved her, lies that stuck in my throat like broken glass. My paycheck barely covered rent, utilities, and groceries. There were nights I fed Sophie mac and cheese while I ate crackers with peanut butter, telling her I wasn't hungry when really I was just trying to make the food stretch until payday. I sold my wedding ring at a pawn shop for $300 that kept us afloat for 1 month. I stopped buying new clothes, started cutting my own hair, learned to fix things that broke instead of replacing them. But the hardest part wasn't the money. It was the loneliness. I would wake up at 5 in the morning to get Sophie ready for daycare, work an 8-hour shift, pick her up, make dinner, give her a bath, read her stories, and then collapse into bed only to do it all again the next day. There was no one to talk to about my day, no one to share the small victories or the crushing defeats. When Sophie took her first steps without holding onto furniture, I cried because David wasn't there to see it, and I had no one to call who would care as much as I did. My friends from before the divorce slowly drifted away. They were all married, living different lives, and I think my situation made them uncomfortable. Maybe I reminded them that marriages could end, that the security they felt was more fragile than they wanted to believe. Or maybe I just didn't fit into their dinner parties and couples' game nights anymore. Either way, the invitations stopped coming, and I stopped reaching out. I built walls around myself without even realizing it. At work, I smiled and chatted with customers, but it was all surface. I never let anyone get close enough to see that I was drowning. My coworkers knew I was a single mom, but they didn't know about the nights I sat on the bathroom floor after Sophie fell asleep, crying so hard I had to muffle the sound with a towel so I wouldn't wake her. They didn't know about the panic attacks I had when bills came in that I couldn't pay, or the shame I felt standing in line at the food bank, praying I wouldn't see anyone I knew. I carried my loneliness like a secret, like something shameful I had to hide from the world. I told myself I was strong, independent, that I didn't need anyone. But the truth was, I was terrified of needing someone and being rejected again. David's leaving had taught me that people could walk away without looking back, and I wasn't sure I could survive that kind of abandonment twice. Sophie was my reason to keep going. Every morning when she climbed into my bed with her messy hair and sleepy smile, I remembered why I had to keep fighting. She deserved a good life, a happy mother, a sense of stability even if I had to manufacture it out of nothing. So I kept the smile on my face and the loneliness locked deep inside where she couldn't see it. Years passed like that. Sophie started kindergarten, then first grade. I got promoted to head waitress at the diner, which meant a tiny raise and slightly better hours. I moved us to a better apartment, nothing fancy, but it had 2 bedrooms, so Sophie didn't have to sleep on the couch anymore. From the outside, it probably looked like I was doing fine, like I had my life together, but inside I was hollow. Then, 3 years ago, everything changed. The diner where I'd worked for nearly a decade closed down. The owner retired, and none of us saw it coming. Suddenly, I was unemployed with a 7-year-old daughter and rent due in 2 weeks. I applied everywhere: restaurants, retail stores, offices, anywhere that would hire someone with my limited resume. But the job market was tough, and I was competing with younger workers who didn't have the baggage of single motherhood. I finally got an interview at a corporate catering company that serviced office buildings downtown. It wasn't waitressing, but it was food service, and I knew how to do that. The pay was better than the diner, and there were benefits, actual health insurance that would cover Sophie if she got sick. I needed this job desperately. The interview was at their main office in a sleek building I'd walked past 100 times but never entered. I wore my only professional dress, the burgundy one I'd bought at a thrift store, and altered myself to fit better. I felt out of place the moment I walked through the glass doors. Like everyone could see, I didn't belong in this world of polished floors and people in expensive suits. I was early, so I waited in the lobby, rehearsing answers to interview questions and trying to calm my racing heart. That's when I met him. His name was Michael, and he was the operations manager for the catering company. He wasn't the one conducting my interview, that was the HR director, but he happened to walk through the lobby while I was waiting. He smiled at me, a genuine warm smile, and asked if I was there for the catering position interview. Yes, I said, and my voice came out smaller than I intended. You're going to do great, he told me. Just be yourself. We need good people who actually care about the work, not just people who look good on paper. It was such a small thing, just a moment of kindness from a stranger, but it steadied me. I went into that interview and I was honest. I told them about working at the diner for 10 years, about being a single mother, about needing this job, but also genuinely wanting to do good work. And I got hired. Michael was my supervisor. I started in the kitchen preparing food for corporate events, and he was the one who trained me on their systems and procedures. He was patient and encouraging, never made me feel stupid when I asked questions, never seemed annoyed when I needed help. He was probably in his early 40s, always dressed professionally in suits, with kind eyes and an easy smile that made people around him relax. Over the weeks and months, we developed a working relationship that slowly became something more. Not romantic, not at first, just a genuine friendship. He'd ask about Sophie, remember details I'd mentioned in passing, bring her drawings I'd shown him on my phone to show to his colleagues because he thought they were talented. He treated me like I mattered, like my thoughts and feelings and experiences were worth listening to. I was careful, though. I kept my walls up. I was polite and professional and friendly, but I didn't let him in, not really. I'd learned my lesson about trusting people, about letting someone close enough to hurt me. But Michael was persistent in the gentlest way. He never pushed, never demanded anything from me, just consistently showed up as someone reliable and kind. When I mentioned I was worried about Sophie's upcoming parent-teacher conference because I had to miss work, he rearranged the schedule without me asking. When my car broke down and I didn't know how I'd afford to fix it, he connected me with a mechanic friend who gave me a fair price and let me pay in installments. When I came to work, visibly exhausted from being up all night with Sophie, who had the flu, he sent me home early with pay and told me family came first. Small acts of kindness, over and over, like he was slowly teaching me that not everyone would leave, that some people actually stayed. About 6 months after I started working there, we had a major event go wrong. A client had ordered catering for a corporate function, and there was a mix-up with the order that wasn't my fault, but I was the one on site when they discovered the problem. The client was furious, threatening to cancel their contract with us, and I was standing there trying not to cry because I knew this could cost me my job. Michael showed up. He talked to the client, took full responsibility, arranged for replacement food to be delivered within an hour, and somehow turned the whole disaster into a moment that actually strengthened the client relationship. Afterwards, when the client had left happy and the crisis was over, I completely broke down. We were standing outside the building in almost the exact spot where the picture of us was taken. I tried to hold it together, but all the stress and fear and exhaustion just came pouring out. I was apologizing through tears, saying I couldn't lose this job, that Sophie needed me to keep this job, that I was so tired of everything being so hard. And Michael just listened. He didn't tell me to calm down, didn't minimize what I was feeling, didn't make it awkward. He just stood there and let me be human, let me be broken in front of him without judgment. "Emma," he said when I finally ran out of words, "you carry so much by yourself. You don't have to do that." "Yes, I do," I said. "There's no one else." "That's not true," he said gently. "I'm here. Your coworkers are here. You have people who care about you, but you won't let anyone help." He was right, and that truth cut through all my defenses. I had been so afraid of needing people that I'd isolated myself completely. I'd turned my loneliness into armor, convincing myself it was strength when really it was just fear. That conversation was the beginning of something changing in me. Michael didn't try to fix everything or rescue me like some hero in a movie. He just showed me, consistently and patiently, that I didn't have to carry everything alone. He became someone I could talk to, really talk to, about the hard parts of single parenthood and the fear of never being enough and the loneliness that had been my companion for so long. He met Sophie a few months later at a company family picnic. She was shy at first, but Michael had this way of talking to kids that made them feel important. He asked her about her favorite books and actually listened to her answers, played catch with her when other kids didn't want to include her in their games, treated her with the same respect he gave everyone. Watching them together, I felt something in my chest crack open, something I'd kept locked away for years. It wasn't just about attraction, though I'd be lying if I said I didn't notice how his eyes crinkled when he smiled, or how safe I felt when he was around. It was about recognizing that maybe I deserved kindness, that maybe letting someone care about me wasn't a weakness. We started spending time together outside of work, coffee on Saturday mornings while Sophie was at her art class, dinner at casual restaurants where we'd talk for hours about everything and nothing. He never pushed for more than I was ready to give, never made me feel like I owed him anything for his kindness. One evening, we were sitting on a bench in the park near my apartment, watching Sophie play on the swings. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and I felt peaceful in a way I hadn't felt in years. "Thank you," I said suddenly. "For what?" Michael asked. "For being patient with me, for not giving up when I kept pushing you away, for seeing me when I was trying so hard to be invisible." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You were never invisible, Emma. You were just carrying your loneliness like a secret, and I wanted you to know you didn't have to hide it. Not from me." Those words broke something open in me, something that had been closed for so long I'd forgotten what it felt like to be truly seen by another person. I started crying, not sad tears but relieved ones, like I'd been holding my breath for 8 years, and finally remembered how to exhale. Michael didn't try to stop my tears or make them go away. He just sat with me while I cried, his presence steady and solid beside me, showing me that I didn't have to be strong every single second, that it was okay to be vulnerable with someone who wouldn't use that vulnerability against me. That was 2 years ago. Michael and I have been together since then, building something real and honest and good. He didn't fix my life or solve all my problems, but he showed me that I didn't have to face everything alone. We moved in together last year. Sophie calls him Michael, but she tells her friends at school that he's basically her dad, and we're planning to get married next spring. But more than the relationship, more than the partnership we've built, what Michael gave me was the courage to open that locked box where I'd buried all my loneliness and pain. He showed me that being vulnerable wasn't the same as being weak, that needing people didn't make me less independent, that letting someone care about me was actually an act of bravery, not surrender. I still work at the catering company, though I've been promoted to event coordinator. I love my job, love the people I work with, love the feeling of competence and pride in what I do. Sophie is thriving in 4th grade, full of confidence and joy, surrounded by friends and activities and opportunities I could barely afford to give her before. My life isn't perfect. We still have challenges, still have bills to pay and problems to solve and hard days when nothing goes right. But the difference is, I don't carry it all alone anymore. I have a partner who shows up, who stays, who chose me and Sophie and keeps choosing us every single day. I have friends at work who text me funny memes and invite me to their kids' birthday parties. I have a community that I'm finally letting myself be part of. Sometimes I look at old photos from those years when I was barely surviving, when I smiled for the camera but my eyes looked empty, and I barely recognized that woman. She was so scared, so convinced that she had to be an island because depending on anyone would only lead to more pain. I want to go back and tell her that it gets better, that the loneliness won't last forever, that one day a kind man in a blue suit will see right through her walls and gently, patiently help her remember how to open her heart again. I learned that loneliness isn't something to be ashamed of. It's not a character flaw or a sign of weakness. It's a human experience, one that so many of us carry in secret because we're afraid of being seen as broken or needy or too much. But the truth is, we're not meant to do life alone. We're meant to connect, to support each other, to let ourselves be seen and loved, even in our messiest, most vulnerable moments. Michael didn't save me. I saved myself by doing the hard work of surviving, of showing up for Sophie every day, of pushing through when everything in me wanted to give up. But he walked alongside me and showed me that accepting help wasn't the same as being helpless, that letting someone in didn't mean I'd lose myself. Today, when I feel loneliness creeping back in, because it still does sometimes, old patterns die hard, I don't lock it away. I talk about it. I tell Michael when I'm struggling. I reach out to friends. I let myself be honest about the hard parts instead of pretending everything is always fine. And that honesty, that willingness to be vulnerable, has connected me to people in ways I never experienced when I was hiding behind my walls. To anyone reading this who's carrying their own loneliness like a secret, who's convinced they have to be strong all the time, who's afraid to let anyone see the broken parts, I want you to know that you're not alone, even when it feels like you are. There are people who will see you, really see you, if you let them. There are people who will stay, who will be patient with your walls, who will gently help you remember that you deserve love and support and kindness. You don't have to carry everything by yourself. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to pretend to be okay when you're falling apart. Real strength isn't about never needing anyone. It's about having the courage to let yourself be human, to ask for help, to believe that you're worthy of care even in your darkest moments. My loneliness was a secret I carried for so long that it became part of my identity. But Michael, with his patience and kindness and steady presence, helped me understand that I could put it down, that I could open that locked box and let the light in, that I could be vulnerable and survive it, even thrive because of it. And that's made all the difference. If my story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need a little hope today. Sonnet 4.5 Extended.